Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Screens and Pages panel. My name is Ashley Rayner. I'm a librarian at NORC at the University of Chicago, and I'll be moderating this session. All of these books have a relation to a movie or a show or a video game, which makes them a fun way to explore something familiar. I'm so excited to welcome Amy Chu, author of Disney Pixar classic graphic novel Turning Red, published by Papercutz, about a confident girl who has the family trait of turning into a giant red panda when she gets too emotional. Jody Hauser, author of Stranger Things and Dungeons and Dragons: The Rise of Hellfire, published by Dark Horse Books, about Dungeons and Dragons and the high schoolers who love it. Monica Sanz, author of Minecraft Adventure School, published by Random House Worlds, about three kids who want to become adventurers but learn about working together. And TurtleMe, author of The Beginning After the End, published by Yen Press, about a mighty king who gets mysteriously reincarnated into a baby in a whole new world. And last but certainly not least, Gabriel Valentin, author of The Sword in the Stone, original graphic novel published by Papercutz, about the continuing adventures of young King Arthur, Merlin, and my personal favorite, Archimedes. Welcome, everybody. Good to see you. Um, we're gonna get right into it. My first question is for Monica Sands, author of Minecraft Adventure School. I've been playing video games for over 30 years, and yet I find Minecraft completely inscrutable. I don't, it's a me problem, I know. Luckily, I have a 9-year-old who is delighted to explain things to me. How do you make the world of Minecraft accessible to noobs like me?
Well, I love that question because when that was one of the main things that we discussed when I set out to write this book was that we wanted it to feel accessible to someone who has never played Minecraft. We wanted them to be able to pick up the book, immerse themselves in the story, and not get caught up in not understanding the mechanics, because that's really what's at the heart of Minecraft. It's this amazing world where anyone can play and you can decide how to play. There's survival where you have to like gather all of the items you need to craft your tools and build your shelter. Or there's creative where you have everything in your inventory and you can just let your imagination go wild. So while I was writing, I was very intentional in how I presented the mobs. These are the creatures in Minecraft, and how the kids went about like building their tools, explaining it in a way that didn't feel overwhelming, so that they could just completely enjoy the story the same way that they could enjoy the game.
I got really hung up on like, is mob a singular noun or a plural noun? And my daughter was so patient with me because I was like, I don't know what's going on here. So she was, I think you did a really good job of making it accessible, but that was like I was like, let's get hung up on semantics because that's the right thing to do here.
Yeah.
My next question is for Jody Hauser, author of Stranger Things and Dungeons and Dragons: The Rise of Hellfire. So when you write a book like this, is the assumption that people have seen Stranger Things and they just want more insight into the world? Or do you think that you'll have some people who are coming in completely green, like me? Do you try to write for both? Like, how does that work?
I think there's a bit of wisdom in comics is that every issue of comics is someone's first issue of comics ever. So you always want to make sure that you're introducing the characters by name really early in the issue and like seeding some details that, people coming at it fresh might not know. And I'm someone who, as a kid, I was allowed to read books of things that I wasn't allowed to watch. So I know that that's going to be a reality for kids too. There's going to be kids who want to watch Stranger Things and their parents are like, nah, it's too scary when you're older. But here, this is a book. You can read a book. Books are good. So I always want to make sure that it's accessible for, fans of Stranger Things who've maybe never read comics before and fans of comics who are maybe not familiar with Stranger Things. So there's kind of like a tightrope balance to walk there.
It's so when you said that, it unlocked a memory. For some reason, I had a copy of like Bill and Ted's Bogus Adventure, like the sequel, like a comic version of it, but not the first book, the second book. And I don't know why I had that in my house, and I've never seen either of the movies, but I definitely remember that comic. That is such a funny. I like that perspective because it does make it accessible in a way for people who like. I'm like, I don't know what this is, but this comic looks cool. I'm gonna pick it up. Thank you so much. My next question is for Amy Shu, author of Disney Pixar classic graphic novel Turning Red. I love this movie. It was like yeah, there it is. It was one of our pandemic like favorites. It's an amazing adaptation that made me want to watch it again. Can you talk about the process of writing an adaptation versus writing your own work?
Oh, okay. Uh, the difference between writing your own work. Well, I mean, I do love adaptation because it's a constraint. I have something to work with. You know how it is if you're doing something on your own. It's blank paper. So there's some great things about it. Doing this was a little more difficult though, because it had not come out yet and they were still working on the screenplay. So that was a whole new thing. That was, I think some people are not, right? That was different. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
So you're kind of like
Challenging.
what do you call it, flying without a net. Like you're just kind of like,
Well,
oh,
so right, I have to be true to what's not existing yet. So, and then we'll make changes. And I was like, oh, okay, that's different. Let me go back and change that. The idea being, of course, kids are going to want to watch the movie and then buy the book. But
uh,
it doesn't work that way in comics, right? I mean, somebody's got to draw the thing, we got to write it. So
right.
that was a whole nother
That's so interesting.
level of complexity that we don't normally have.
In the group, like I don't know if this did that happen to anyone else in the group where you had to change stuff because of like the you could just nod or shake your head or nod or okay. That's really interesting. I've never heard about that. So that's cool. Thank you for that insight. My next question is for Gabriel Valentin, author of the Sword in the Stone original graphic novel. I love the Sword in the Stone, and I always wondered what happened to my guy Wart, otherwise known as Arthur, after the end of the movie. How did you know which direction you wanted to take the new King Arthur?
Um, yeah, I've been thinking, as you have, I've been thinking about what happened to him since I was, I don't know, 6 years old when I first saw the movie. So I think I was 6 years old in 1963. So that tracks. I saw the movie in theaters when it first came out. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, there was so much time. I almost feel it feels like a cheat code, honestly, because it wasn't like, oh yeah, like they offered me Sword in the Stone, and then I said, "Oh my gosh, I have to come up with something really quick." It was like, "Oh, I already know it. I already know what's going to happen." So it was pretty much just conversations with friends around campfires and talking about Disney movies and going to Disneyland and messing with the stone and having all of those sorts of interactions and being like, "Oh, wouldn't it be cool if this happened?" And so when I finally got the opportunity to do that, it truly was a dream come true. Like, in no exaggeration, I was like, oh my gosh, I already know the story I'm going to tell. So
So your preparation was your entire life.
literally, yes. Sword in the Stone is my favorite Disney movie of all time. So that
Interesting.
is, if you look at my letterbox, it's on my top 4. So
I love that. My next question is for TurtleMe, otherwise known as Brandon, author of The Beginning After the End. Brandon, The Beginning After the End was a novel, then a comic. I got to learn about webtoons, kind of like looking into this. I read the comic, and then it's also now an anime, which is still in production. Which of these mediums is your favorite to write for, and why?
Yeah, good question. I started my roots in writing prose, so I'm biased towards that form, but it was quite an adventure sort of being able to adapt my own work into a webcomic format, which back then, it wasn't nearly as, I guess, mainstream as it is today. So there were no guides, there was nothing for me to refer to other than other works that I can kind of extrapolate on. And then more so even for anime, I didn't really have any peers that I could lean on. So like, when I was fairly involved in the production and pre-development of it. So being part of that and being part of all the stages, it was interesting and enlightening. But I think I like the simpleness of writing prose by myself.
You're like, I don't need anybody else. I just want to do it. I get that. Sometimes it's like I know I can do it best, so get out of my way. I got it.
You're putting words in my mouth.
My next question is for Monica. There are 3 perspectives in this book: Cell, short for celery, Belinda, and Jack. All different, all with the same goal of becoming an adventurer. Which was your favorite to write?
This is a very hard question because
I know
they're
it's
all
like choosing.
babies. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing, it was just really fun because to write all of them, because as a mom of a 5th grader, they have very big emotions and they feel things really intensely. So it was just really fun being able to explore that through these three characters. Each of them is amazing, but each of them is dealing with a very relatable desire and emotion. Like, for instance, Jack, he wants to be seen by his parents. So he thinks that joining adventure school, they're going to be proud of him and they're going to finally see him. But he wants to do it on his own and not ask for help. So it was nice following him on his journey where he had to learn that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is ask for help. Then there's Celery. She comes from a family of farmers. And so her family are like, you're going to be a farmer too, but she wants to be a hero and travel the overworld. So she signs up to go to adventure school to gain confidence and believe in herself that she can do this. But I guess of all of them, it would have to be Belinda, mainly because her backstory, it's rooted in an event happened that she has immense guilt for. And her journey throughout the book is self-forgiveness and to have grace with herself. So it was really special to see how like her friends helped her see that she can be kind to herself and have grace with herself the way she would with others.
It's ironic that you're talking about the big emotions of fifth graders because I was like, I see a little bit of stuff I might need to work on in some of those things. Like, okay, it's a little early for confessional hour, but it looks like that's what we're doing here. So just get on board, everybody. My next question is for Amy, which similarly, I am definitely I think her name is Abby. I think the like really loud like short one. That's
Right.
me. I love her. Yes, that's my girl. So which was your favorite one to write? Who's your favorite friend to write?
That's so funny because I'm the exact opposite. I thought about this and I'm Priya. Priya was
Oh my
me.
God, I love her
Yeah,
too.
like I'm like with the glasses, kind of quiet, but like a lot of stuff going behind the scenes. So Priya was she's also harder to write because it's a lot easier to write for Abby, right? But Priya, there's a lot going on there that you don't necessarily see immediately.
Still waters run deep.
Yeah,
Remember that? Yeah.
yeah.
And are you into vampire novels too?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's so funny. No, but I write them. How about that?
Oh, I
So
love
Carmel's
that.
my not for kids book.
Yeah,
That's the opposite end, but yeah,
I
probably
love
shouldn't
it.
say it like that, but
It's all good. My next question is for Jody. Do you play Dungeons and Dragons? We talked about this a little bit, so I got a spoiler about this. But do you play Dungeons and Dragons? How did you think about bringing the feel of that game to a comic book? And you can see in this picture, they're getting ready to start a session. Familiar to anyone who's ever played a TTRPG before.
Yeah, I've actually played D&D and like I think D&D was like the 10th TTRPG I played. I think I played Pathfinder before I played D&D. But yeah, I have a pretty decent history going back of playing tabletop role-playing games. I met my boyfriend in a tabletop role-playing game. I met some of my best friends in games. So for me, I think what we really wanted to capture is just not the like, oh, trying to get a game planned when everyone's schedule is a mess and, all the sort of logistic jokes that people, talk about, but more the feeling of, the friendships that grow at the table and it being a creative activity, but also a social activity, and sort of how those two things mingle to create these really strong bonds between people that transcend just the bonds that their characters have.
Yeah, it's like it brings people together that may not normally like hang out or like be friends, but like you're tied together in this action, and that's a really cool way to put it. Excuse me, Gabriel. My question is for you about. So there's a new character in this book. Her name is Brea Bogwater. She's Madam Mim's niece. She's such a great addition to the canon. How did this new character shape your story?
Yeah, I thought part of what I kind of tying back to the earlier question, part of the story I wanted to tell is I thought, when the first movie, well, the only movie, I guess, but in Sword in the Stone, we get to see Merlin we get to see Arthur transition into the king, and he has this growing experience, but it seems like the movie ends right at the peak where we would get to see what the lessons that he has learned. So I wanted to show us that I kind of wanted to. I'm a big fan of the kind of like the polar opposites and kind of like the team ups. So I was like, I wanted to create a character that, you know, gave Madame Mim her own apprentice like character. And I wanted to, you know, give my boy Archimedes, you know, his like a rival bird, and then kind of have, you know, magician versus pupil versus bird companion. You know, that was just kind of, it just felt very clean, you know, doing it that way. And so Brea Bogwater came from it just Mim is such a mysterious character. You know, we never learn anything about her background, and I didn't want to ruin that because that's part of what makes her so awesome. But I'm like, it needs she wouldn't just she's not the Mim wouldn't find someone to mentor. It would have to be someone that was thrust upon her. You know, that's just not in her character. She wouldn't go out and be like, "Hey, I want to teach you black magic." You know, she just would never do that. So I was like, what if, oh my gosh, what if, you know, she comes from this long line of evil sorcerers and she has a niece somewhere that she's never even met, and you know, that family just drops Brea, her niece, off in Mim's like hut, and she's just basically stuck with her. So she has no choice but to teach her, and she still doesn't want to teach her, but she's like, hey, I can maybe I can like use her. I can get something out of her because, you know, she's a villain. So that was, I was like, the only way I think we can do this and tell this type of story is if we give Madame Mim an actual like niece, like family member that she doesn't really like.
There she is in her green hair. I love her look. She's really cute to me. My next question is for Brandon. I found Arthur's inner dialogue so charming. So, and just to tell everyone, he's like, again, he's a baby. So, like, it's kind of like a look who's talking, but much cuter. What inspired you to bring this unique character to life?
So the beginning after the end came at a time when the reincarnation trope was sort of really popular, and or it was gaining traction, and I really love that sort of trope in it, and you know the whole aspect of second chances, of going into this new world, like a segue of portal fantasy, and having this character that was a king that was isolated, that you know had to rule with an iron fist, and putting him in an unlikely scenario as you know being in an infant's body, that I felt like naturally just brought up a lot of fun instances that just you would not imagine for a king to be making. So I think some of the humor in it, and like the levity of it just wrote itself. It was really just easy making the character charming in a relatable way.
Again, I have a 3-year-old, so I definitely remember those times where like, what are you thinking? And so it was kind of funny to think about like what's going on in that little skull of yours. So now he talks a lot, so now I know what he's thinking literally all the time. Um, my next question is for Monica. This book is about adventure, it's in the name, but I also thought it was really heartwarming. How do you manage all the action and still make your story wholesome?
Well, the thing with action, it's super fun to read. It keeps you turning the page. But I think what makes an action scene memorable, are the emotions, are the characters, what they're experiencing personally as these action scenes are playing out. So I made sure that when I was writing the action scenes, at the core of it was the heart, like what each character was trying to build towards, and how everything that was happening, how it would help them on this journey. For instance, there's one of the first action scenes is they all have to build a boat to cross this lake. And and then you have mobs coming out of the woodworks. And so some of them decide like, I want to work alone, some I want to work together, and then they see like the fruits of each of their decisions. And so that's how I feel that I balanced out the action while keeping it wholesome, where I just focused on the heart of their journey throughout all of the action sequences. Ooh, I think you're muted.
This is what happens when you do too many things at once. I was shaking my head because I was like, that part was very stressful for me, but like it did show like the benefits and the negatives, I guess, of working together. So it was really good.
Right. And it was
Um,
just balancing the danger and the fun, but keeping it wholesome for kids.
yeah. Yeah, I guess you don't want to like scare the pants off them quite yet. That comes later, I'm sure. My next question is for Jody. I told you this earlier, I never actually watched Stranger Things, but I'm a nerd, so I know enough to know that Eddie Munson, who's kind of the main character of this book, is a misunderstood guy. What new information about him did you want to share with the fandom?
I mean, we definitely treated this story very much as an origin story of how he got into D&D and how he became the head of the Hellfire Club and the main DM and running this campaign that you see in the show. And I think he's more misunderstood by the people in Hawkins than by the audience, because the audience, you get to really see who he is. And a lot of it's thanks to Joseph Quinn's charm as an actor, that you really sort of see the inner goodness in him shining through. And it's more the people in town who see him as like a drug dealer and a criminal. So we did play with that some in the book, wherein the way people react to him does shape some of the anger that, sort of almost seems to reinforce what people believe about him. But you also see him making the choices to specifically prove to the people that he's not what the rumors say or what they might think he is, and that he is a cool, decent person who maybe also sells drugs occasionally. But you know, he's someone who can believably be a hero, not just in a D&D game, but in the larger conflict that happens in Hawkins.
Yeah, it made him feel really well-rounded, like, who among us hasn't made a mistake or done something that, people perceived one way and you're like, I was trying to do something else. And so I found him very like I said, charming, even though I haven't like seen the show, I found him really charming. My next question is for Amy. I haven't been in English class for a very long time, but I have my own theory about the metaphor of the red panda. I'm pretty sure it's not just about like turning into a red panda. I would love to hear, I have a theory, I have my ideas about it, but I would love to hear what you think it means. What does the red panda represent for May in your opinion?
Oh,
Or you
well,
have
so I think it's a little different. Maybe I don't know if it's really different for me. I mean, I am Chinese American. I have a fraught relationship with my Chinese mother, so there is a little bit. And remember, my favorite character was Priya, so there is that the inner beast within you kind of metaphor, and to let it loose kind of thing. So yeah, I have my little cap here. So this is the thing. Like, I don't do Halloween or cosplay, right? So even though I have this, right, this is really me getting a little wild, right? It's like, okay, but I won't go outside like that. Right? It's kind of weird. So for me, it's a little different. That is my interpretation how I wrote it. It's just like letting loose in that way. But I think for everyone, it's a little different. It's how you find yourself in the story, and um, the whole relationship with my mom, and writing comics or whatever. I don't know.
is and it's interesting because I feel like, and I might have said this in another question, but like, yeah, if I'd read it as a kid versus like reading it as an adult with my own kids, like I feel like
Mhm.
my perspective is really, it's a really interesting perspective. And I think that's a great thing about this story. Like it speaks to you like no matter
I,
where you are.
I find it really interesting because when I do comic conventions and people come up and they talk about 50% of the people come up, they said it's boys and girls. 50% of the readers are boys who find their right. I
That's
find that
awesome.
interesting. Maybe some people
Yeah,
found it quite natural, but I was like, wow, it's not what I would have expected. But boys really love the story. It's very gender neutral in that way. So I thought that was
that's
really
awesome.
awesome.
Okay, my next question is for Gabriel. Arthur struggles to become a wise and just ruler at first. There's definitely times where they have the pitchforks ready for him. What are the parts of his personality that actually make him a good king, in your opinion?
I love that question. I think the easiest way to put it is because he doesn't want it. That's what makes him, he doesn't want power, and that's what makes him a good king. He even in the first movie you see like he wants to be a squire. And why does he want, like, that's his dream, that Merlin tries to push him away from because he sees so much more potential in him. But why does he want to be a squire? He doesn't even want to be a knight. It's just such a beautiful tale because he, he wants to help the knights. He wants to, that's all he cares about. He wants to help the knights because the knights are the ones that go out and help people. And he doesn't see himself, he doesn't crave that power. He doesn't crave any sort of, ruling over anyone else. He doesn't see himself as above anyone else. And so, in my opinion, that's what makes him such an amazing ruler and such a good king, is because he doesn't crave it. And so now he's in a place where he has all the power, and all he truly wants to do is help people, which makes a good ruler, in my opinion.
That's really cool. I didn't think about it that way, but that makes sense. My next question is for Brandon. There's a whole chapter, which I was just talking about being a mom. There's a whole chapter where you show Arthur's mother, Alice, and her inner monologue about her new son. Why did you decide to show this side of Alice in your story? Why did you have her tell the story at this point?
Yeah, and I was just thinking how interesting it was that I'm, talking about Arthur right after Gabriel has, and the character Arthur in my story is kind of based off of the Sword in the Stone Arthur, so the little ode to that. So, weird coincidence, but yes. So the whole chapter where we show it from the mom's perspective, I think I do this in the novel fairly often, where I show different points of views, and and I love showing how the world sort of changes around the main character Arthur, where even whether it's on purpose or whether it's just through happenstance, how he affects the world, how the main character affects the world, and how that is shown through the lens of different characters. Someone close like his mother, that's something that I love trying to portray. So I have a lot of fun with writing different characters' points of views and seeing the main character through their lens.
Yeah, I really liked her perspective because she's kind of like, this baby is a little weird, but I love him and he's super cute and we're gonna keep him.
Nice.
I was
He's a
like, yeah,
weird
that's
baby,
fine.
but he's my baby.
Yeah. Only I can make fun of my weird baby. Like it's just me. I love it. My next question is for Monica. What message? I know this is like kind of a broad question, so interpret it as you will, Monica. But what message do you want readers to come away from this book with?
Um, there's a few. Definitely, have a sense of adventure. Just go out, try new things, and, be brave and be bold. Um, to chase your dreams. Like, I think that's one of the things that I loved most about Celery Cell, was that she just really, really wanted this for herself, and did what she had to do to achieve her dream. Um, and and for Belinda, one of the key things that I want people to come away with is, just to have grace with yourself. It's okay to make mistakes, and sometimes bad things happen, but you can persevere. Yeah, and just also whoever wants to play Minecraft, go and give it a go, because it really is just a game for everyone. And then I just hope they enjoy the book the same.
I neglected. Well, first of all, I love that. I'm gonna try again. I think I just need more direction. So like maybe I'll have my kid give me tasks to do or something. 'Cause I want to get it. I just don't.
Yeah,
Not
try
yet.
creative. That was our huge thing growing up. Like, we would
Yeah.
just go in there and build amazing things and make up stories.
All
So
right.
that's just a very easy way in.
All right, but I will try my best. I was neglectful in asking the audience if they had questions. I have one question in the hopper already, but if you guys have any burning questions, please put them in the Q&A and we will get to them as best we can. My next question is for Amy. There are so many different messages and lessons in this story. I think this book would feel totally different if I had read it before I had a daughter. Like I said, which one speaks to you the most? You said about your mom. I don't know if there's any other insights you want to add to that.
Yeah, I think well, I don't have a daughter. I have two boys. I have two boys, and I do think that there is a lot of lessons in your relationship with your parents, regardless if you're Asian or not, right? That I think that part is really important. Like now that I'm well into my my mom is what, she's now 79, and now we're having all these discussions we probably should have had back in the day. So maybe that's the lesson, hug it out a lot earlier, perhaps.
It's hard. I understand that. It's hard sometimes because you're like, I can't believe I'm about to ask you this question, but I really need some insight or I really need that help. And so it's a good reminder to do it sooner rather than later. Um, my next question is for Jody. These are already established characters, but I'm still curious to know how much input, if any, you add into the art of the book. And the art is drawn in this case by Diego Galindo.
Well, we actually did have a number of original characters to the comic with the original Hellfire Club that Eddie and his best friend Ronnie join as a freshman. And Ronnie is a character who was introduced in the novel, prose novel about Eddie. So she's sort of a pre-existing character, but not in the sense that we saw her portrayed by an actor. So we kind of we had ideas for the characters in terms of personality, but we really left the designs up to Diego. And I think he did an awesome job. And they definitely look like kids who would recruit you on your very first day of high school to play D&D with them because they're shorts and players to raid a dungeon. Um, but yeah, it was really fun seeing like the original group. And as they sort of graduated and moved on, the friends that Eddie had from his band slowly started coming in. And that's the Hellfire Club that we saw in the show. But getting to play with these original characters that sort of fostered that love of the game and were the first kids that really gave Eddie a chance to be himself. That was a lot of fun to work with Diego on that.
Yeah, I wonder like what the vibe was. Like, oh, I can tell you want to play this Dungeons and Dragons game with me. Come on over. Or like, I don't know how you can tell like which kids are ripe for that kind of thing. But that's
Well,
it's
in this version, we had Ronnie reading The Two Towers. So
oh
that was, they were like, oh, fantasy nerds, beeline. It's like if you're already on the second book, you're committed, you know?
Yeah, that that is very true. I think when those movies came out, I read the books and I got through them because I knew the movies were coming out. It's that I like fantasy, but like I could see that being like a marker for people. Okay, they're one of us. They're part of the team. Um, my next question is for Brandon. I'm a big fan of magic. I just said I'm a fantasy person. I'm a big fan of magic systems. The crunchier, the better. Can you talk about how you developed the concept of the mana core? This is something that Arthur is building even as a baby to improve his magic. And how will Arthur use it for magic? I only got to read the first like part of the story, so I'm like trying to get some spoilers in.
Yeah, so the beginning after the end is really an amalgamation of sort of all the things that I read and did growing up, whether it was, reading books, reading manga, reading, and then, even playing games online. So the whole magic system where not just Arthur, but all the characters in this world, they can grow stronger and through that, their cores, it's shown through the colors. I felt it was very easy for readers to really digest and feel like a game almost where they see the characters growing stronger and know, oh, just roughly, who's stronger than who, kind of make it a fun guessing game. Oh, this guy's stronger than this guy, but he has this other factors in it. So who's gonna win? And I thought that kind of blended in seamlessly with the fantasy elements of the beginning after the end. So it was just a lot of fun writing that. And Arthur, as he develops more of his magic, I think at first his main desire is to really protect the family that he's kind of been given in this new life. But he realizes that, just being strong enough to protect your family, that's actually a very steep task especially as enemies get stronger and stronger, you also need to get stronger in order to protect the people that you love. So that's what he uses magic for.
When you're talking, it made me think of like the levels. I'm not a Dragon Ball Z person, but I remember them talking about the levels, and it's over 9,000. Like it made me think of that, but also a little bit of like My Hero Academia.
Exactly.
Um, yeah, okay.
Exactly.
It's like
Having markers for people to
yes,
gauge, like, oh, this
yes.
person is of this level. I think that makes it very intuitive and engaging for readers. So I kept that in mind while trying to kind of developing the mana core kind of system.
Yeah, I think it's accessible. Like not everyone likes to read those super dense, like, sometimes it's like, okay, this makes sense to me and
Right,
I can
exactly.
yeah. So especially if you've read like other manga or seen anime, like I mean, not to say this exact same, of course, but it was very. I was like, okay, I get how this works. My last question that we have some audience questions is for Gabriel. I know you produce music because I Googled everyone, and I always enjoy when authors provide soundtracks or playlists for their books. So I have to ask you, what three songs would you put on the soundtrack for Arthur's Magical Kingdom?
Oh, wow. Um, I would I would put I would say I would put The Trooper by Iron Maiden.
Oh my God.
Um
I gotta write it down.
and probably Mamma Mia by ABBA. And I think lastly, I don't know. I would have to say "Lucky" by Britney Spears. Yeah. So
I didn't expect that last one. I love it. The only one I haven't heard is the Iron Maiden one. So, but that's great. Why do they like? Maybe why would you put the Mamma Mia one on there?
um just that, like, throwing your hands up in the air, and that sense of like gleeful anxiety, almost just of releasing it to the universe kind of
Okay.
thing, just saying, like, it's out of my control and we're just along for the ride, and there's not a lot I can do currently. I'm just gonna have to learn how to roll with this. And I think no matter, we always we're always looking for that secret, that like secret magical spell that can pull us out of our funk. And ABBA's like a band that does that for me. That, like,
Oh, that's so
whenever
funny.
I'm super down, I turn them on. I'm just like, it's not so bad.
I love that idea of gleeful anxiety. Those two words do not go together generally for me, so I'm gonna try to embrace that because I have some audience questions if you guys are ready, and I think pretty much these could go to anyone. So, however the spirit of gleeful anxiety moves you. First question is from Megan. When working under an existing IP, what are the restrictions that are placed on you? How much control are you given with the story? I'm sure that varies.
I can answer that. From my experience, I've worked on a lot of different licensed books, and the honest answer is it depends. It sort of depends if it's a ongoing series where there's like a current TV show like Stranger Things, or if it's a larger universe with a lot of moving pieces like Star Wars. And it also depends if you're working on an area that's going to be touched on in other mediums, or if it's sort of like the neglected corner that no one cares that much about and you can do whatever you want. So it really, even in the same property, it really varies from project to project in terms of like the scope, how it connects to the show or the movie or the novels or whatever else is coming out. So yeah, you kind of always got to be prepared for anything from you can do pretty much whatever you want to they're going to make you take out or add back in commas if it doesn't exactly reflect, something. So it's the full gamut, really.
It reminds me of for a long time when George Lucas still owned Star Wars, he was like, "Don't no one talk about like what happens to Chewbacca," and I always thought that was like a really funny, not funny, haha, but like just an interesting restriction. So makes sense to me. Anyone else want to talk about that one?
Yeah, I mean, like Jody, I've also worked on, we've done Marvel, we've done DC, we've done a lot of different things, and what Jody was saying is absolutely true. It kind of depends on. It also depends, honestly, on the particular editor or licensor as well. But if it's like the untouched part where people just don't care, or if it is a big character that everyone has got their eyes on, but also like even Turning Red now, since I wrote an adaptation of the movie, I can't change things. It's an adaptation of the movie, but I also wrote additional stories, and those I had a lot more freedom. As long as you're faithful to the character in the universe, we get more leeway than you would expect sometimes. So, as long as I'm doing something that fits that hasn't been explored, usually people were quite kind of cool. Or especially because, it was set 20 years ago or so. We just got to be faithful to that period yeah, of time. And that's really what you need to watch out for.
Was there ever anything y'all put in there and you were like, "I can't believe they let me do that"? Can I ask that? Is that a weird question?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, frequently. I, I will try to probably Jody's the same way. I will test the waters and sometimes stuff goes through and you're like, Wow, I can't believe they. I shouldn't say. I'm not gonna say anything.
Yeah, of
Specific.
course.
But yeah, absolutely.
God, that's so funny.
I agree with Amy. There's definitely things I'm like, they'll never let me do this, but I'm gonna pitch it anyway because I want to tell that story. And they're like, yeah, that sounds fine. And you're like, really? Did you read that?
Now I gotta
I'm
do
not
it.
saying
Like,
Did you
I'm not
read?
telling
Did
you
you
to
really
tell me
read
not
it?
to do it, but like, okay.
And someone relates that. It's a related question that's popped up from Laura. Have you ever been able to fight for something to be kept in the story that you were asked to remove or change?
I can answer that. There was there was a little bit of pushback from Disney when I was writing Sword in the Stone for a scene where Merlin is teaching Arthur a lesson about and from that they turn into beavers and they build this dam and then the dam gets washed away and there was some comments that they didn't want Merlin and Arthur turning into to animals and they were like we think that's like a little too like I don't think kids are gonna relate to that. And I said, well, you know, it's really cool and it's like a huge part of our theory and lore, which existed even before the Disney movies. I mean, if you read like the original stories of King Arthur and Merlin, they were always turning into animals, and then Disney just took that and Disneyfied it. But it's also in the Disney movie, and they go, wait, they one of the people was like, wait, they turn into animals in the Disney movie, and I was like, yeah, and and they go, oh, that's probably fine, and you can go ahead and do that. So so
I
that
would
was
have
like kind
lost
of
my
like
mind. I would have had to leave the room and come back. Like
so that was a fun note, and I just didn't question it. I wasn't, but you know, to me, I was like that's like classic. You know, everything. You know, there's plenty of notes where there are other things where I was like, oh yeah, we can change that. That like they wanted originally Brea Bogwater was she didn't have as big of a role,
Mm.
and also this kind of ties into the last question is she didn't have as big of a role because I didn't want to scare Disney and be like I'm making this whole new character, you
Mm.
know, so I didn't know how long my leash was, and so they were like, oh, we actually want Brea in it more. So then we were like, okay, cool. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. You never know, like, you know, what it's gonna be.
I can't believe that. I'm still stunned. That's great.
I think it was like one person who just was not familiar with the IP, and you know, it's like their job, and they probably have
That's
a
what I'm
brand
saying.
Bible, and I don't know, maybe they just didn't know they turned into animals. And so that was like the only thing I pushed back on. I was like, I really think they should though. You know?
I mean,
Oh,
I do think that there's this misconception that there's like you got to fight for everything, and like if you're
mm,
doing it right, and you have to decide sometimes. First of all, sometimes the notes are really good. Do you want to fight over what was a perfectly good note?
mhm,
Other times we're like, really? And yeah, I think it also depends on where you are in your career. Are you new or you've been
mhm.
around? And so I did fight for something recently, and it was really more for the artist, and that's when I was like. No, I think let the artist do what they're supposed to do. And so, but then you got to do that a little more strategically. It's like, okay, if I'm covering your back, you cover my back on this, and we team up. And the editor backed off. He was like, yeah, no, never mind, never mind.
Final
Yeah.
message, an important one for me. You got to pick your battles. I am
Yeah.
so sorry because I'm having a lot of fun with this conversation, but we got to go on to the next, our next panels. Thank you so much to everyone for answering my questions and responding to the audience. Thank you to all the librarians and educators for joining us today. Next, we have 3 concurrent panels: Small Heroes, Big Quest, Panels with Punch, and How Kodansha Manga Gets Made. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for a lot of fun. Really appreciate it. Thank you, audience, too. Have a good day.